You're listening to the Redefining Wealth podcast with me, Patrice Washington, and for over 7 years, I have made it my mission to really go deeply into what real wealth means and how you get there. And the truth is, wealth is so much more than just money and material possessions. The original definition of wealth is the condition of well-being and happiness. And let me tell you, from firsthand experience, I can tell you, well being starts to happen when we stop allowing life to distract us and we get radically honest and real about what no longer serves us. This week's episode is actually a remind. What is a remind? Well, it's a rewind that I want you to listen to because it will remind you of some truths that I believe you need to hear in this season. In 2023, this conversation with Dr. Thema Bryant, so good to my soul. And it's just one of those conversations that you want to revisit, especially if you are someone who has spent your life intellectualizing everything that happens, right? There's a difference between understanding your feelings, but then allowing yourself to actually feel. And for my people who are learning how to feel, who are learning how to embrace it all, you don't want to keep being distracted from your healing by all the busyness and being overproductive and an overachiever. You are coming to a place where, listen, your life is speaking to you and saying, I need you to lean in and listen, and I need you to make some changes. Because just because you learn to survive in a certain space doesn't mean you were destined to be there forever. I don't know anyone who's better equipped to have this conversation, and I needed the reminder as well, so I wanted us to share this together. Listen in to my conversation with Dr. Thema Bryant, a friend of this podcast from 2023, and get ready to take a lot of really great notes. I am so excited to welcome back a friend of the podcast. I mean, she's like my therapist in my head, Dr. Thema Bryant. She's a licensed psychologist, ordained minister, and sacred artist who has worked nationally and globally to provide relief and empowerment to marginalized persons. She's the host of the Homecoming podcast, which I have to say, every time I listen, I feel like she's a fly on the wall in my house. I don't know how she does it, but she does. It's a mental health podcast to help facilitate your journey home to self. Dr. Thema is also the author of the life-altering book, Homecoming, where she helps us overcome fear and trauma to reclaim our whole authentic self. Welcome back to the Redefining Wealth podcast, Dr. Thema.
Oh, thank you so much. So much love and appreciation for you. And when you held up the book, I saw all your sticky tabs. So I'm glad
Oh,
you are really digesting it.
Dr. Thema, if I opened up this book, you would see how many pages are just
Oh,
underlined,
wow.
dog tagged, all of the exercises I've
Mm,
literally written in the margins. I have
yes.
a note section on my phone that is just dedicated
Ah, I love it.
to the work that has come out of this book, the work
Ye-
that I've been going through.
Yes,
And
yes. Beautiful.
let me just get into it because I
Yeah.
just want to hold it up and let me just get into it. Here's where I
Mhm.
want to start. Some of us stayed in unhealthy relationships, not because of insecurity, but confidence. And you said confidence that you believed you could change someone and you believed your love would be enough. Those were the words I read again on the beach
Mm.
on my 41st birthday, which is also coincidentally the day that my divorce papers were served. And the realization, because I struggled with the fact that I had been in years of therapy, I'd had life coaches, I've been so committed to personal and spiritual development and all these things. And so when people would say you were staying in something that wasn't quite right for you because of your insecurity, I'm like, I really don't feel like it was
Mhm.
insecurity. I
Yeah.
feel like a confident woman, feel like
Mhm.
an empowered woman. I
Yeah.
know that I am powerful. I know that I am purposeful. But those words,
Yes.
like I literally had delusions of grandeur in terms of my confidence that if
Yes.
I just love hard enough, if I pray hard enough, if I fast more often, if I do all the things, then I should just continue to stay in something and wait and hope for
Yeah.
something different. When the reality was the things that I needed this season of my life were just not being honored or respected or valued. And that is the truth.
It's so important that we let this other narrative be known. Because I think people often, as you're describing, imagine someone who is broken down, insecure, fragile, dependent on this person for validation. And that is the narrative for some. But there can be another narrative, which is very successful women. And when you are used to being successful, then when you put your mind and heart and spirit to something, it happens in every area of your life. You like every goal I've ever had, I got it done. And so then why would relationships be any different? I'll just work harder. I'll just strategize. I'll just adjust. I'll just, because you're not used to the way the world talks about it is quitting. The way the world talks about it is failed relationships. So if you're a successful woman, you're not going to sign up for a failed relationship. You're going to keep working until you have victory, not recognizing that leaving can be success.
Yes.
That your permission to breathe, to exit, to not have to carry another human being emotionally and spiritually can be an act of liberation and success.
Oh, I love even when you define homecoming in the beginning, all throughout the book, you continue to illustrate like this is what it means to come home to yourself. But here's one part that I really loved: when I cannot be honest about how I feel and what I need or want, even with myself, I am far from home. And you go on to say, as we journey home, we recognize the ways in which we have lied to ourselves, when we have convinced ourselves that we were okay when we weren't. And then you go on to say, homecoming requires truth telling, both to ourselves and to others. And one of the things that I have really learned is that whenever we get radically honest with ourselves, it requires us to make hard decisions.
Yes.
And I believe for myself and also for my clients that I've talked to, and just for the women and men that I talk to in my DMs, that's the thing. Once I get honest about how I feel and what I want, then I'm going to have to really take inventory of my life. And then what?
And then what? Truth telling necessitates action. I cannot live in the same way I could live when I was in denial. And the reality is, when we talk about not knowing how we feel, if you are thriving in the other areas of your life, you weren't in touch with the misery as it related to the marriage, because you were prospering professionally, you were being a great mom, you had a circle of friends, you were doing your healthy workouts. It's not like everything in your life was a disaster. So then when people would say, "How are you?" you would you felt genuinely say, "I'm doing great."
Literally.
Literally. And you meant it. You meant it.
Yes, very real in that moment.
Yes. And in the other areas of your life, it was true. And what can happen is you can feel like those other areas are compensating for what's missing. So you don't feel that emptiness as much. So spiritually, you were getting nourished. Professionally, you were getting nourished. In friendship, you were getting nourished. You were taking care of yourself. And yet it was like to get still enough to say, what about this? Which is supposed to be like my primary support. This is supposed to be like my number one cheerleader. This is supposed to be just that soul level love, and that it is not flowing in the way that it should. And so it requires, in some ways, even slowing down to notice that, because you can make your life so full. And I'm thinking of a client now who just stayed so busy in parenting and just missed it, like missed what was missing because of being like super busy. And so when you slow down and then begin to tell yourself the truth that this is not enough, and it also is costing me, right? Yeah, it's costly.
It's costly to be dishonest with ourselves.
Yeah, because when you ask yourself, or when other people ask you, how could it go on so long? One, you were working at it, and two, you were prospering in other areas. So it didn't feel as the cut, like you didn't realize you were bleeding,
Yeah. It's like just
right?
a little paper cut.
Right.
It wasn't like I didn't get stabbed to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being a positive person, you affirm yourself. So you make a decision, like when they say joy is a decision, right? So you would wake up in the morning and say, it's a new day. I'm going to have a great day.
See, Dr. Chama, I'm telling you, she stays a fly on the wall. This is how I feel when I listen to your podcast. I'm like, how does she know? How
uh,
does she know? That's exactly it. Looking back, I even did a product at one time that was very popular in my business, and it was called Affirm Yourself to Wealth. And yes, I have
yeah.
lived with these positive affirmations and really this belief that nothing bad is happening to me, which we could get into. Like, nothing bad is happening to me. Everything is like a lesson or a blessing. So, really, when I look back, I realized from the book in particular how disconnected I was to my actual emotions. And one of the things that I took away from your book about how we even lose our way home begin with is that, like many people, I was raised to dismiss my feelings. And in the book, you talk about we dismiss our feelings because of sometimes religion or based on certain teachings around our gender, our race, and all these different things. And in that part of the book, when I tell you that thing is underlined, and I started to list some of the reasons that I had normalized behavior that didn't feel good. If you can normalize, I think that we can normalize toxicity.
Yeah, becomes the norm.
Yeah.
And you adjust to it and it's no longer startling. So then, as one survivor of intimate partner violence talked about, was she didn't know when this had become the norm.
Mm.
And because it's the initial time, it's, oh my God, did you just say that to me? Or did you just do that? Or wait, what just happened? And when you have that frame that you described, which is everything's a lesson or a blessing, you don't have time to tend to the wound and the fact that we are worthy of having intimate space where we're not constantly being wounded.
Mm.
But that's sometimes when we spiritualize, then we can miss what's actually happening.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
I know you and I have talked about that like off the mic before. One of the things that I've shared is when I did question behavior over the years, we would always look to faith based, namely Christian counselors
Yeah.
and pastors. And looking back, I genuinely feel like I was manipulated
Yeah.
into staying and into working on my belief in God, my trust in God. I've always continued to do, and I talk about my faith openly here in the podcast and on stage and all of those things.
Yeah.
But I feel like in a way it was weaponized to put up with behavior, and that I just needed to pray about it and I needed to stay committed to the marriage. But I don't feel like there was always a true sense of accountability.
Yeah. This is so important. The manipulation is real, and it is when ministers and other people are prioritizing longevity of the relationship over the wholeness of the individuals. So they don't care that you're miserable as long as we keep counting these years. 10 years, 15 years, 20, and we give a big cheer even if both the people are miserable. Because they'll even say, you don't have to be happy. I've heard people say, it's not about, I'm like, that's the world. The world wants us to be happy. And God is like, it's okay if you're miserable. It's interesting that you would be able to identify the manipulation. And interestingly, I have even had people who were on the other side of things. I'm thinking about a client who's a husband who talked about being uncomfortable He had cheated many times on his wife, and they went to the pastoral counseling, and he sat there and watched the pastor basically bully her into quote unquote forgiving and staying. And they left the office, but he knew it wasn't right, even though he benefited from it. We have to be very careful about who is in our ears, and as you name, how people can weaponize your faith to have you spend your whole life in something that is destroying you.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on what it looks like to be wandering, to
Mhm.
not be at home to yourself and to be disconnected because as we started with, I think people have a picture of everybody just being down and out and depressed and all these things, and it can look and manifest itself in so many different ways. Can
Yeah.
you just give us some ideas of what we might identify with if we are just not home to ourselves?
Yeah. So one of the ones that's often overlooked is the busyness, right? Because it looks productive, right? It is productive. And we live in a capitalist society, and people will praise you, especially if you work for a company. They will praise you to be the first one there and the last one to leave, but doing all the extra hours and signing up for everything. And we're even in a culture now where people frown on if you have a hobby that you have not turned into a stream of income.
Seen that, yes.
It's how are you making money off of that? And it's no, I just love to do it. So that perpetual busyness can also be, I can't be still, because if I am still and silent, I'll have to face some things. I'll have to think about some things. I'll be overwhelmed by some things. So let me just keep moving. Some people are also afraid if they got still, they would never be able to move again because they've been stuffing that stuff for so long. Hyper busyness can be a form of that. It also is in what we use to numb ourselves. And we can often frown at people if we say, oh, they're overusing alcohol or drugs. But there are many things we can overuse, including these cell phones, right? That social media is designed to be addictive. That's why they want to
Mm.
give you constant notifications. Something happened. Somebody liked something. Somebody said something. Come look again, look again. You looked at one reel, now another reel's going to appear. You can spend hours of your life numbed out being a spectator in other people's lives. And we can also use food. We can use gossip. We can use obsessions with celebrities. So there are all kinds of things that are distractions and that serve to numb us.
Mm.
And so looking at what are the things that I turn to? What are the things that I rely on? And is it actually something that is nourishing me? It can also show up as emotional unavailability, because that's why sometimes we can be drawn to people who are emotionally unavailable, because when you actually have relationship with someone who's going to really see you, that's going to be uncomfortable if you're not used to seeing yourself.
Oh.
That's going to feel real personal. Like, why are they asking me all these questions? True intimacy is vulnerable. And you may find yourself saying, like, why is it person after person that I'm wanting is unavailable? It may be that you're also unavailable, but haven't told yourself that truth.
Oh, that's so good. I remember when you talked about some of the distractions, it was a part of the coping,
Mm-hmm.
how we can cope with disconnect. And so I want to give some kind of things to consider when we talk about, I think you called it emotion focused coping. I have all my lists in my notes section of my phone
Love
because
it.
it was about like instead of the distractions leaning into the activities that can help soothe, but
Right.
like in a more productive or
Healthy.
healthy
Yeah.
way.
Huh?
So I remember like
Yeah.
journaling, for
Huh?
me, meditating,
Yeah.
working out, but not to the point of making it a distraction because working out is some people
Right.
can
Yeah.
take it there to an extreme, talking to
Yeah.
friends, Can we talk about what it looks like to get on the path to coping with life instead of just leaning into the distractions?
No, great question. So there's basically three general types of coping. So there's emotion focused coping, problem solving coping, and distraction. And at different points, you may need to use all three. Are there pieces I'm neglecting because I am over focused on one? So, with the distraction in a healthy way, it's some people ruminate, which is they just keep replaying it over and over again. And they, every time you talk to them, you're talking about their ex, and everything is just like so centered on that. And so sometimes you have to give like your heart a break, give your mind a break, give yourself a break, and say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go to the movies, or I'm going to do something else. I'm going to have lunch with a friend, and that is not going to be the topic of the conversation. So giving yourself that mental break can be a form of coping. Emotion focused coping are the things that you do to help acknowledge, express, and soothe the distress. That's, as you named, the journaling. If there are people who I can talk to about what I'm feeling and they support me, not judging me, using my expressive arts. So some people, especially creative artists, will say their best poem or their best choreography came out of their heartbreak, and they like put it into the art, and that was like a form of relief and empowerment. We can also use our spiritual practices, so meditation or prayer, reading an inspirational text. And we want to think about, what do I do to calm my emotions? Aromatherapy, taking a bath, massage, all of those things help emotionally. And then we have problem solving coping. So that is, what am I going to do about it? Whether that was the filing of divorce or going to couples counseling, or us coming up with some compromise because you wanted to do this and I wanted to do this, and now what are we going to do? So one of the things that's helpful for us to be mindful, what are we looking for when we express our distress to somebody? And if we know what we're looking for, to let them know that. Because sometimes what happens is we're really wanting like a hug and a soft place to land, and somebody's trying to tell you about if it was me, blah, blah, blah. And they tell you 7 things you need to do and what you shouldn't do. And you're like, I wasn't looking for all of that. I'm going to make my own decision. And then sometimes it's the flip, where somebody's trying to rub your back and you're like, I'm not looking for a back rub. I need a strategy. Yeah. Check in with yourself, and also notice if you usually lean towards one and neglect another. Because some people are like, I'm about solutions, but they never give themselves space to cry. Or some people have been crying and need to come up with a plan. So see, where do you lean?
Oh, that is so good. For many years, Dr. Thema, and we may have talked about this the last time you were on the podcast, we talked about being raised by people who didn't necessarily have the luxury of healing. Yeah. And I've come back to this with different therapists multiple times throughout the years, because it is hard for me to cry. I can sit and think through any matter of things, any number of things, but the tears that I've even cried throughout my separation and divorce, it was like really tears of gratitude. Like, it wasn't from sadness, but when I did finally cry, there was like a, whoo, girl, you free. Like, it was there were like tears of joy almost. Yeah. And I don't want to trivialize anything or make it seem like it wasn't a difficult season, but it was not like a sobbing of, oh my God. When I did feel something, the way that I process, a part of that is meditation, reading things positive, or just like to get more knowledge on something, and journaling. And I used to always, and I still struggle with this sometimes. I want to ask people. So I'm going to ask you today, is something wrong with me because I don't cry if I necessarily feel sad? I'm just able to sit with it and intellectually move through it. And I'm like, emotionally, what the heck?
Yeah. So there's a defense mechanism called intellectualizing. You keep it in your head. And so it's not as much that something is wrong, it's that you have limited yourself, you have cut off access to parts of your experience. And when you have been in a long-term unhealthy circumstance, you can adopt that mindset, but perhaps emotion wasn't welcome there or emotion didn't feel safe there. So you adjusted. So now that you're no longer in that circumstance, it's time to bring your heart back. And the way we say, drop into our heart is to be able to utilize more body-based interventions. So if you do like cognitive therapy, that's going to keep you in your head, and that's where you like, because I'm going to think of this and think and change my thought. But to tap into the emotion, like trauma-informed yoga or dance, African dance, praise dance, or somatic psychotherapy. Soma means body. So as you connect with your body more, you will animate your heart. You'll wake it up.
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah.
And I genuinely, as I'm listening to you say that, I think about that starting when I was a kid. Being raised in a home, I'm Belizean American, but being raised by my grandma who would give you the fix your face speech. There was no to have a problem with anything. There was no room to feel sad, even if something was actually a sad occurrence. There was no room to respond any type of emotion.
Yeah. So that was a setup. They taught us what they knew, but it was a setup. And so when we are perpetually intellectualizing and masking, it makes it a secret from us, but also a secret from the people we are in relationship with. And so that's how behavior can continue, because you're not looking fazed by it. And you can say, I didn't feel like I was pretending or performing. It is the way, here it is, when we were made to be that way from so young, we can convince ourselves that's just how I am. But it's how you were made to be from a very young age, but it's not how you have to continue to be, so that in your relational life and just for yourself going forward, that I want to give myself permission for the full range of human emotion.
Something else that connects to that is I in my marriage not even like honoring what I felt was true. So you're talking about that emotion, that emotional place, but also just like questioning myself for things that I knew were true for me. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So in the book you say there's a declaration and it says, I refuse to participate in the silencing of myself. I do not consent to the erasing of myself.
Yeah.
And there was something like that leapt out. Like that stood out to me so much, because I realized that I silenced myself in the marriage, as vocal as I am. Oh, I could be on stage and I could do this. And then not for my sanity not to be questioned. I'm not even going to go round and around with you. But that did not start there. I learned to silence myself at home. I actually grew up in a home with a grandmother that did not like noise. So there was always this, be quiet. Then I go to school, you talk too much, be quiet, be quiet. And so once I got older, professionally speaking, I understood the importance of commanding the stage and owning your voice. And only since separation and divorce have I made the connection that I could do that professionally, but not always personally.
Yes, yes. Important. One, the setup, which is why no alarm went off when you had to do it in the marriage. You're like, of course, this is what love looks like, right?
This is what love looks like.
Is I love them enough that I want them to be comfortable. and I can tell they're uncomfortable when I'm expressing. So I'll be quiet.
As I start to move on and dream a new dream, as I continue to heal, I still have the desire to date and love again
Yes.
and see something different for my life.
Yeah.
But I will say what I have taken away from your book, and it's another note I keep in my phone. You say our minds can sometimes convince us to ignore or minimize our concerns.
Yeah.
And just in the brief dating I
Yeah.
have attempted to do at this point, when I feel that my feelings are not being validated, I have learned that I feel it in my body.
Good.
Like I do feel that this doesn't feel right or this doesn't feel good for me. And I have learned that I don't have to over explain and rationalize and be logical. And because, period, point blank, this doesn't feel right. I'm telling you, it doesn't feel right for me.
Yeah.
And if the response is combative and defensive, I'm like,
Yeah, I don't have
oh,
to
okay.
do this. Yeah, this looks like labor. This looks like a workshop. This feels like a client. This is work. And that's not the kind of work that when we say, oh, relationships take work, not this kind of work. It's a great realization and awareness of your own healing, because with healing, not only will you select differently, your taste will be different, but also you will show up differently. And so you start to recognize those old patterns, say, I don't want to sign up for that again. I know how to do that, but at this season of my life, that's not what I'm signing up for.
Dr. Tamer, can I tell you what one Joker told me? I
Yes,
use Joker loosely.
I love Joker. Yeah, it's a very mild
So
way.
one Joker told me when I expressed, I've seen this before. Like, this is a pattern that I'm not willing to revisit with anybody at this stage in my life and then this stage of my healing. And he essentially said, you're going to go around putting what your ex did on everybody. And I don't know what you're over there doing in therapy. They're not helping you. How do you know? For me, I was like, Joker, get out of here. So that was done. But how would someone know that they are healing if they are actually healing because they recognize those patterns, or if they're just projecting some old stuff on a new situation, a new partnership, a new relationship?
It would be to identify the actual behavior or to identify what was actually said, right? Because one of the things when you have been hurt, you can just be hyper vigilant and not trust anybody, even when people haven't given you a reason to. So you're like making assumptions or accusing people of things they haven't actually done versus identifying a behavior that is problematic in and of itself. So that's what you want to, not only do I have a feeling, while we do want to get to a place where we can trust our intuition, initially that alarm might be going off nonstop just because of the discomfort and the fear of a repeat. But then to say, if I look at it in isolation, what did they say or what did they specifically do? That is how I will know if it's projection or if it is manifestation, is showing up in real life.
I knew this one was showing up, Dr.
I know
Tamal, very
that.
clear.
Look, and then for him to try to criticize your therapy, and that's also a good indicator for you, for any of us, when people can't take feedback. Because even knowing you the way that, to the extent I know you, I know the way it was communicated was not like attacking, accusatory. I already know that you said it in a way where anybody who is grounded could hear it, right? And then could have been able to talk about it, even if they were to say, we know the difference between intention and impact. Even if they were to say, when I said that, I didn't mean to be blah, 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 but I can see how it would feel like that.
Yes.
And you can tell when people can reflect and own, even if it's a partial ownership, then we can have some ground, right?
Yeah.
But when not only do I absolutely reject what you're saying, but now I'm going to insult you and make it about your issues because you've had negative people in the past. So you're not ready for me.
Right.
So is that what care sounds like? Yeah.
Yeah. I was like thinking about this goes back to that idea that you think that I was in a long-term marriage with these issues because of insecurity. It was not insecurity. The way that
Yeah.
I learned to love was, oh, you just work with people and fix them
Yes.
and you just
Yeah.
hope and pray for the
You help
best.
people.
It
Yeah.
wasn't because I was insecure for all those years. So don't
Right.
try me, sir. Don't
Yes.
don't play
Don't.
with me.
And with that, it's over.
And
It's
with that, I bless and release you back
yeah.
into the wild. So,
Back
but
into
Dr. Tamer, so we've been talking about more romantic love, but I also wanted to make the connection to purpose because we're all about chase purpose, not money.
yeah.
And I think sometimes we see these conversations about coming home to yourself just about our personal relationships, but there's really a space in the book where I think you make a do a great job of just also helping us understand professionally what this looks like, because one of the things you said is if you have spent seasons of your life chasing goals that really did not matter to you, that did not fulfill you, this is another manifestation of being emotionally homesick. And so there are people who are donning some incredible titles and they have beautiful office spaces and they have reserved parking and they have all the labels and they've literally built a life that they don't want and is not fulfilling them,
Right.
and they feel completely out of alignment. Can we just speak to also what some of that looks like? Because maybe personally we're the opposite. Maybe personally you are doing your thing, but professionally you and outwardly actually you're not really where you truly authentically desire to be.
That's right. And so we can think about what we made the decision based on. Some people culturally grew up in households where like you were only allowed to become like an engineer, doctor, or lawyer. I've had students who, undergraduate students, who have asked me to talk to their family because they want to major in psychology. And the family is like, what's that? So sometimes it was, in some ways, they felt they didn't get to decide, that other people decided for them. Sometimes people decided based on the money, right? I want to make a good living and this makes the most. So
Mhm.
this is what I'm going to do. And then sometimes people think because they can do something, they should do something. And you
Oh,
want to be
Dr. Tamer, break that down.
yes. Some people think because I can do it, I should do it. So just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's good to you or good for you. And other people may have been so amazed you're good at it that they made it seem like that's what you're supposed to do, even though you don't actually like it. It just comes easy to you. So the gifting of the time we're living in is so many people are having a second or third career. I have graduate students who are middle age and they did another career for a number of years and then either now decided they wanted to go into mental health, or it's always been the secret dream and they saved up some and now they're ready to do it. But as we both said, to give yourself permission to dream a new dream or to revive the old dream, because we spend a lot of hours working.
Yes.
It's like a lifetime.
Yes.
So you don't want to just dismiss that if and when you have options. I do know some people will say, my family is dependent on me. And in those cases, I ask people to think creatively about how can I protect time and energy to build the dream while I am having stability to pay my family's bills. And then hopefully, as we continue to plant those seeds in the dream, that it could get to a place where it could be the main thing. But we're strategic and planful for that.
Absolutely. We talk about that in my program, Purpose to Platform. Like sometimes what you're working on is even just volunteering. You're doing it in a
Yeah.
volunteer situation, but so
Yes,
that you can start to see what's possible for it.
that's right.
And that also helps nourish your soul and makes it okay to continue to do the thing that you're doing in this season, but also creates like a little gateway to down to
That's
the
right.
path of purpose.
Yeah.
Dr. Tame, I have to say, what I love about Homecoming is that it makes it okay to not heal overnight. The more I read the book, every time I'm reading it, every time I flip to it, I've
Mhm.
been exposed to something new. I'm different. I've
Yes.
had new revelation, fresh revelation about something, and things just continue to open up. So I respect how it is laid out because it allows me to just embrace that healing is a journey,
Yeah.
right? And I have no expectation of myself to just heal overnight. Okay, girl, like back to my positive thinking, like it's a lesson or a blessing. I'm
Mhm.
moving on. No, I am learning new things about myself every single
Mhm.
day. I'm learning new things about my history, not just myself today, but how that relates. And I wanted to say that because as I look back over the last several years, I realize how I've been coming home for a while now. And coming home professionally first allowed me to get out of the box of just being the finance expert
Mhm.
because that was the label, that's what the accolades were attached to, that's what all the stuff was. And I had these media platforms I was attached to and all this notoriety, but I knew internally that I wanted to say more. I
Mhm.
knew I wanted to share more. I feel like I could help people in different
Mhm.
ways, even though it doesn't fit into the box of how I've been labeled. And
Mhm.
so starting to come home to that did build my confidence.
Mm.
It did help me to see what my impact
Yeah.
really could be. It did fulfill me on a different level because the conversations I was having with people was no longer just about budgets and credit reports. It felt so much deeper and it was so much more nourishing.
Mhm.
And then exploring my faith.
Mhm.
I talked to you about that offline one time too, like just exploring my faith, coming home in that way, allowing me to see what I believe without just subscribing to this is what I was born into, and just exploring my acceptance of other faiths. That's what I love about this community. And I love about you is that you can speak to so many different faith backgrounds and you're just always so gracious and loving and embracing and kind and knowledgeable. You literally are like my, I guess I would say, mentor in that way, that I just desire for my community to feel loved no matter what our faith of origin is, our religion of origin
Mhm.
is. And that expansion
Yeah.
allowed me to come home to myself in a different way. And then it led to the marital stuff. It just, it's amazing that I look over the journey, how things just become intolerable. But that frustration is such an invitation
Mhm.
to get radically honest, to get in touch with our emotions, and to just look into basically what's working and what's not.
I'll just say it's so true that healing is an ongoing journey. And so it's for us not to beat ourselves up when new experiences show the wound in a new way. It doesn't mean we haven't done any work. It means I'm in a new season. For example, even around the relationship, a part of your healing takes place as a single person inward. And then a part of the healing won't really happen until you're in relationship,
Mm.
right? Because you can feel like in the abstract, we say, I'm good, I'm fine, I feel wonderful. But when I actually have to show up for somebody, then it's going to bring up some new pieces. When your child gets to be the age you were when significant things happen,
Yeah.
some stuff will show up for you. So when you branch out into these new spaces, and as you said, when people try to make you question your reality, gaslighting, and these kinds of things, those are triggers because you've had that experience before. So it is a continuous journey. And as you named, it affects the different areas of our lives, romantically, friendship, professionally, spirituality. And the big piece in all of this is defining it for ourselves instead of being limited to the boxes that other people try to put us in. Like you said, if the box is finance, then I can't talk about spirituality. Who said? But those are the rules. And then I get to decide, are those my rules or am I
Right.
going to be out of the box? Yeah.
Oh, I am really learning to embrace this out of the box living.
Yes.
I'm really learning to embrace and loving it, actually,
Beautiful.
allowing myself to see a different possibility. That has actually helped me so much professionally. I have to say it has up leveled my business in ways I never thought about. But I
Uh-huh.
see that asking better questions almost, but also like deeper questions and
Yeah.
giving myself more permission that if you question that, then you can question this and you're allowed to question this and you're allowed to question this and explore for yourself. And I
Mm.
think that is all a part of what it means to redefine wealth. Oh my gosh. Okay. Even though I asked you before I let you go, I'm going to ask you again these redefining wealth rapid wisdom questions. Just tell us the first thing that comes to mind. How do you define success, Dr. Thema?
Utilizing all of my gifts to the point of fulfillment.
How do you define wealth in 3 words or less?
Abundance and overflow.
What's one book that has helped you redefine wealth for yourself?
Daughter, Drink This Water by Dr. Jaya John.
Oh, this is a first. Daughter,
Mm.
drink this water. And fill in the blank. My name is, and to me, the truth about wealth is.
My name is Thema Simone, and for me, the truth about wealth is the goal is collective liberation, not an individual story.
Dr. Thema, always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you for having me. I so enjoy
Oh,
it every time.
oh my gosh, Dr. Thema, if I could just bottle you up, you make me want to move back to LA so that I
That
could
would be
be
so
a
great.
client just so I
Yeah.
could sit at your feet. Thank you, thank you, thank you for how you always pour in. Thank you for the gift of the Homecoming podcast. Thank you for the gift of this book that just continues to stretch me and hold me and encourage me and support me through this phase of just learning to love myself on a deeper level, but also just learning, I think, to love God on a deeper level, to love others on a deeper level, because it all comes from a very authentic place, as authentic as it can be on any given day in that moment. And I'm learning to just love that and accept that and embrace that each day
Mm.
with,
Oh,
without
beautiful.
judgment
Without judgment. I love it.
each
That's
day.
a gift.
Oh my goodness. Just hearing all of that again spoke to my soul. I hope that it did the same thing for you. Listen, I want to remind you about what Dr. Thema talks about in her book Homecoming, that is always right here, actually. Let me grab it. Can I grab it? Yes. This book, Lifesaver. Love this book to pieces. You'll see it has all the tags and it is dog-eared and underlined to pieces. When she talks about how often we stay in unhealthy relationships, that's just not romantic. That's in any part of our lives, not because of insecurity, but because of our overconfidence. It reminds me over and over again to release people, to be radically honest enough with myself to release people and give them the dignity of their own process and give me the dignity of being freed from feeling like I have to stay stuck in these cycles. This is a part of the work that we do with Pillar Mastery, and the results that our clients get and seeing people come home to themselves over and over again is such a blessing. And I want to invite you into Pillar Mastery. It's a place where we hold space for your personal transformation. We get honest about what's no longer serving you, and we start to replace it and redefine what you actually want to see there and put you on the path to actually get the guts to go make it happen. Check out Pillar Mastery. It's at pillarmastery.com. Enrollment is open always, and you are invited. Come in a little bit closer and let's do the real work, because sometimes you don't need another certification or another business program. Sometimes you need to deal with the stuff that you've been trying to mask and block and act like it's not actually what it is. And I would love to support you in that. So if you're in the Redefining Wealth app, of course, you can message me anytime, but wherever you're taking this in, I would love to hear your comments and see what your takeaways were. And I hope that this remind was a blessing to you today. Until next week, when I'm back with an original episode, a fresh episode, I want you to go live your life's purpose, find fulfillment, and earn more without ever feeling like you